Right, so day 3, and it's about 10 o'clock in the morning. I've left Millham and I've now come to the River Esk, the Esk estuary. And unfortunately there is a ford here, but you can only use it when the tide's out, at low tide. So I can't cross it. I'm going to have to go all the way over there, back on the main road. It's a bit of a detour, to be honest. There's been nothing to show you all morning. I've just been on this A road, and it's been a bit of a nightmare. So I got off and then I went through this like farm, got lost on this muddy path, and then there's a firing range over there, an MOD firing range, where they were testing some heavy artillery, and I got stopped and said, can you wait 5 minutes? So I did. So yeah, that was quite cool. It was funny when it happened because you can't see anything. I couldn't have filmed anything, but you could just hear this, you know, and then about a second later, boing. I was like, I thought that's a funny sound. No, yeah, it's just the target. So I don't know what they're shooting at over there, frying pans or something, but proper little boingy sound. Anyway, this is the railway bridge. It'd be convenient if they put a footpath or a little road or something up there as well, but when they build railway bridges, they don't think of stuff like that. These are too old. Nobody had the foresight back then. Anyway, so I've got to go all the way around there, and then I'll hit Ravensglass. So right, so if you think I've run out of history to show you, the past couple of days have been really busy with stuff. Check this out. This is a Roman bathhouse, and over here in the year 130 the Romans built a fort, and it's quite a big fort. You can't see anything now obviously, and it went all the way down to the sea, which is a few hundred meters that way, and it was a big square, and part of it was this bathhouse built there, and all the way around here would have been the civilian settlement, the Vicus. So 130 they built that, and I think it was abandoned in like the 4th century or something. So nothing else survives around here except this, and it's quite nice to look at actually. Right, so let's have a quicker look at this while we're here. It's only a small fragment of the building and what was left. It's like the west end of the building. It would have originally gone all the way over there past that fence. Now you can see here, this is interesting, these bits that sort of jut out of the wall, they're buttresses, so they would have supported probably a vaulted kind of roof, a vaulted ceiling. It's amazing just to see it's still here. This room, by the way, was the changing room, which is quite a weird feeling, because it's the most intact of the rooms, and it's where loads of Roman men would have got changed. And this, obviously, to me, that looks like some sort of religious relic would have gone in there, some sort of religious icon. But yeah, Roman change room. So generally now, the further I get north, the older the history becomes. There's not so much industry like in Barrow, and there's not so many seaside towns like in Lancashire that we've seen. It gets more like this. The Romans had quite a significant presence on the Cumbrian coastline, particularly following their departure out of the Northern Highlands and the building of Hadrian's Wall. A large military stranglehold on Cumbria was good for trade, in seaports like Ravensglass, but also to ensure the territory was guarded from raiding Celts across the water and from the hill tribes within Lakeland itself. Like all Roman military structures at the time, including Hadrian's Wall, the purpose wasn't just to defend against outsiders, but to stamp authority on those already subjugated. So anyway, from here, I'm going to keep going north, and then we're going to jump 2,000 years back to the present day, and I'm going to show you something. Sellafield nuclear facility, so it's a bit of a difference. So I'm on this beautiful stretch of coastline. The sun's just come out now. I'm just past Seascale, a nice little village down there. And I've come here finally. This is Sellafield, and as you know, it's a nuclear decommissioning plant and nuclear processing plant. And it was built in the 1940s and 50s. At first, the first incarnation of it by the government following the Second World War and the production of nuclear weapons. And this is the kind of place. This was the world's first nuclear power plant to operate on an industrial scale. And it was originally called Windscale, and they processed plutonium for nuclear weapons. And then, of course, they built 2 reactors here for power supply. I don't know what this thing is here, by the way. It looks like a light or something, but it's not. Probably something very boring, very benign, but looks interesting. With around 11,000 workers, Sellafield is like a town, with its own hospital, laundry, restaurants and its own armed police force to protect the world's biggest stockpile of plutonium. Now I'd love to tell you what all these buildings are behind me. I know there's a lot of chimneys, and there's a giant ball over there. Look at that, that's pretty cool. It's like the Epcot Centre, only probably a little bit more deadly. So there's been loads of controversies and scandals to do with this place over the years. There's been loads of pollutants leaking out, radioactive pollutants leaking out into the Irish Sea and onto the land and the water courses around here, the rivers and the streams. Apparently kids in the local area are more likely to have higher levels of plutonium in their teeth than kids, say, 100 miles away. And although the government has disputed that, said, oh, it doesn't matter, it's only a very tiny amount. Well, a tiny amount of plutonium goes a long way. So, despite that, I think it's July 2019 now, by the way, and I think it's entering a decommissioning period now. But the government has earmarked this site for future nuclear ambitions. So, who knows what will be here in the future? There'll be possibly another processing plant, maybe another nuclear power plant. They have got a problem here. They've got a load of nuclear fuel which has been decommissioned or processed, which is kind of stored on site, and it's so radioactive that it's making the process of decommissioning the place incredibly difficult. So who knows what the future holds for this lovely place. This is Maryport behind me, and it's another Roman town. There used to be a fort here called Aluna, and this was the southernmost fort which serviced Hadrian's Wall. It kind of stopped people skirting around the edge of Hadrian's Wall by crossing the Solway Firth. So yeah, that is that. Speaking of which, I stopped here really to show you that. I don't know if you can actually see that on the camera, but that's Scotland over there. For the first time today I can actually see Scotland. That is great, I love that. Now, of course, the Romans dominated the borderlands around Hadrian's Wall with numerous fortifications, like the one we've seen at Ravenglass, and further up along the vulnerable coastline at Maryport and Furness on Solway, which is at the end of Hadrian's Wall. But there were also smaller fortlets too, like this one just north of Maryport, named Mile Fortlet 21. So called because it was just one of many tiny forts constructed at intervals of a Roman mile along the coast. It is also the best preserved today. So morning on day 4, and I stayed last night somewhere called Allenby, which is just further up north than Maryport. and last night I went to the pub to get a drink because I really needed one. And I got chatting to people, and this is actually a fascinating little village. I've never really heard of it before. So, for example, in the centre of the village there's a pub called The Ship, and that's where Charles Dickens stayed once. Apparently he didn't think very much of Allenby as a place, but he did reference it a few times in his books. And finally, that big brown building there, I don't know if you can see that sticking out, that's like the school these days. It's been a community hub as well. That was designed by Alfred Waterhouse. Now, Alfred Waterhouse is quite a renowned architect these days. He designed Manchester Town Hall and the Natural History Museum in London, and that is one of his earliest designs when he was just a fledgling architect. So it just goes to show what happens. I mean, I've been visiting all these big places, Barrow and Ulverston and Morecambe and Blackpool and what have you. But it goes to show what happens when you scratch below the surface. You find wonderful little snippets of history everywhere you go. Now, if you've not heard of Allenby, it might be because it missed out on all the tourism. It's on a beautiful bit of coastline, as you can see. But in the 18th century, it did petition to get a railway line, like plenty of places up and down the coast. But unfortunately, it failed. It didn't get that. So it never prospered as a seaside resort like Blackpool, Morecambe, and Sellafield further up the coast. All these places flourished in the 18th century due to railway lines coming and bringing tourists. This place didn't, and it's remained a bit of a sleepy village since then, although worth the visit still. So I don't know if you can tell, but I'm a wee bit tired today. It's kind of slowly catching up on me. My legs are doing all right, but I've been sleeping 4 or 5 hours a night, and that's, for me, that's pretty bad. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to crack on north now. There's not quite as many things to stop and see as I move on, so I'm just trying to get some of these miles behind me. I've got about 40 miles or so to go, the route I'm taking to Gretna Green. So my epic little bike ride draws to a close. I've finished my third night in Allenby and start my way north through the villages along the coastline as far as I can to Furness on Solway, and then through Carlisle all the way to Gretna Green, where of course this leg finishes. So I've made it to the beautiful shoreline of the Solway Firth, and that is Scotland over there. This is Solway Firth. I can't believe I'm looking at Scotland right now, and it's so close as well. I could almost reach out and touch it, because it seems like only yesterday I was looking back at Blackpool Tower. Here we are. This is Furness on Solway. It's a small village, and it's built on top, slap bang on top of where a Roman fort used to be. The Roman fort at the very end of Hadrian's Wall. Now, Hadrian's Wall obviously stretches 80 odd miles across the country to the North Sea, but unfortunately this village hasn't been too kind to the Roman remains over the years. There's nothing left of the fort. The village is there on top of it, and also the village church was built using stones from Hadrian's Wall. So yeah, there's not much of the wall to see actually around here at all. So anyway, Solway Firth, Scotland, nearly there. Now, it's worth remembering, of course, that this is the very northern extremity of the Roman Empire, which stretched all the way down to Africa. The Romans did, of course, go into Scotland and conquer a lot of the Scottish tribes under General Agricola, but in later years they had to retreat and they had to pull back, and that was why Hadrian's Wall was built. And this, for decades and centuries, was the upper limit of the Roman Empire, so it's quite a thing. So there it is, there is Scotland. I made it in the end. It's been an epic adventure for me. Down there's the River Sark, that is officially the border between England and Scotland, and this is Gretna Green behind me. Like I say, it's been an epic little adventure for me. I hope it's made an interesting video for you. But yeah, I've crossed so many rivers, estuaries, peninsulas, along so many roads. I've spent 3 nights camping, Morecambe Bay, the Irish Sea, the Solway Firth, plenty of rain clouds, plenty of main roads and busy cars and tractors. But yeah, you know what? Despite all that, despite all the bad things, it's been absolutely worth it, every second of it. So I'm really glad I've done it. Thanks very much for watching. See you later on. Cheers.